Here we go. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another great episode. I have my great host, Josh, down at the bottom, and JC over to my opposite side of me, Scott. Hey, guys. So we've had some great talks this last couple of episodes. And if you missed the last one, which is about insurance, definitely go check it out or go back to a couple other ones. There's some great ones. We talk about family in one of them. We talk about baseball. There's all kinds of stuff we talk about. So this week, who knows what we're going to talk about? So definitely listen, watch us on YouTube, like, comment, share it, and let's keep watching it and keep listening to it. And let us know if you got a question that you might want to know to ask JC, being a solo guy, or to ask Josh, a hardscaper, that just he disappears in the middle of nowhere at night. Maybe you might want to ask that, how do you disappear from doing a hardscape job? Maybe just send that question in and we'll get it asked out here on the podcast. So thanks guys for being on. So what's going on? This is a great week. I know Memorial Day just happened. So I think the main thing is to thank a vet. Like I think Josh had said to me earlier this week, is don't remember to thank a vet. Anybody out there that has served in the military, thank them. I feel like you should thank them anytime you see them. I mean, you go into Lowe's and there's a couple other places like Bass Pro and that they actually have special vests and special name tags. So that way, that they were a vet. I know my father-in-law walks around with a U.S. military helmet on because he was in the Army. So he has it on all the time. And so, it's always nice to thank a vet for what they've done for this country. So, and if you are a vet, thank you guys for doing what you do. So
absolutely.
So Josh, I'm gonna throw this out to you guys. And I'm gonna throw it out to Josh first because he always likes to be first because then it takes up like 25 minutes of the day. But so how do you guys, I know you said you were working and trying to work Monday through Friday, and not work as much weekends. So how do you guys dilly-dally that out during a day? I mean, you guys got some bigger projects going on. How do you decide how much to do per day and what to do with your guys?
Well, each week, we sit down when we're going into a project and we try to get a schedule of the week. A lot of the times things don't go as planned. But each day you try to set a goal as how far you want to be. If we're doing like for instance, I'm doing my walkway outside. The excavation and base will typically take half a day because it's my house. I think I took 6 hours on the base. So that'd be close to a working day for us. The next day, we typically go by industry production rates. So industry production rates are things that are calculated through so many hardscapers or landscapers doing what they do. So a typical production rate on screeding and laying a paver is 200 square feet per day. In decent condition, meaning the pallet of pavers is right there. You're not walking 100 feet to get them. So I know today I should be able to knock that walkway out. If I don't have to do cuts, that's great. I'll put it down, poly it, edge it, and I'm good. So we consider the same thing when it comes to a homeowner or a development project. Development projects, we do flat work. Flat work means the base is done when we get there. All we're doing is screeding and laying pavers. Typically, a lot of the times we get in and there'll be a discrepancy in the base. The last one we were just on, there was a 5-inch discrepancy, so we had to correct that. So that takes another day. So we'll sit down and collectively we'll talk of, what we have. If there are 2 or 3 smaller jobs, we'll aim for a goal of we need to be out of here by Wednesday, starting this job by Thursday, and we will knock that out by Monday. So, and then you take into consideration rain days or anything like that. Products are ordered prior. Dig safe is called prior. So all that stuff is ready to go unless it's like a small order of a pallet of pavers. Then we set up. So for instance, my house that I'm doing, everything was delivered yesterday. So the skid steer came in Friday night. I picked that up and delivered that Friday night. That's typically what we do is we'll bring the equipment over before the project starts. My 3/4, my 3/8 gravel, and my pavers all showed up yesterday morning. I went out. I'm sorry. The pavers showed up Friday. The gravel showed up yesterday morning. I knew I was starting this around like 2 o'clock. So that stuff showed up in the morning. I went out. I did what I had to do. Got back here. I was able to complete it. So I treated my home project the same way I treated any project.
Okay. So, JC, how do you figure out your week? I mean, I know you have another job, and it's kind of hard, I think, going day to day, but how do you plan on a certain amount of jobs to cut per day? Or I know you have certain days. So how do you do that?
Yeah, mainly my ideal days, obviously the weekends, just because I have those days off, Saturday and Sunday, for the most part, is when I'm kind of going all day is when I don't get to catch up during the week. So there are times during the weekdays, in the evenings, especially in the summer, depending on how the weather's is cooperating, where what I'll do is I'll tackle these smaller properties. And again, I don't have a lot. I really don't. I have a very, very few. But if I want to free up some time during the weekend, or if I, like Josh has projects of his own that I need to take care of, or family stuff that I need to attend during the weekend itself, what I'll do is, like, during, if I have a Thursday evening free where I'm able to go out, I'll tackle one or two of the smaller properties, just to kind of get them out of the way, because I always find that, like, the smaller properties, having more of those, it's more loading and unloading, and it's just, for the amount of time, if you can chip away at those first when you have the free time, and then minimize the properties you have during the weekend, you can focus on the bigger lawns on Saturdays and Sundays. Like yesterday, for example, I was hustling yesterday. I woke up early. I chipped away. I got everything that I needed to get done. But the less smaller properties you have on the weekend, focus on the bigger ones that are less of, and I take care of those. So yesterday, even I had so much stuff to do. I did a couple properties, and I had a barbecue that I went to at a friend's house that I wanted to make sure that I got everything done so I could actually just relax a little bit and enjoy time. So today, for example, I don't have any other properties left for the week. And I got some other tasks that I got to take care of myself, which I've been procrastinating on. So and I'm going to try to make it out to Josh to help him out with his hardscape project there. So we'll see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, well, I think we go through their week. Most of our stuff's already logged in to knowing exactly what we're mowing and what days we mow. But we always try to look at that day and see how it goes. I mean, yeah, you're going to have those days that you plan on, we have days we plan on 15 jobs, and something goes wrong and you're down to 12, and you're like, okay, so I just got to make it up the next day. But we try to plan to where if we're going good and everything's going great that day, we'll try to get ahead. And then that way we can, the next day we're at that point. I know Josh probably has certain hours that they mow and not mow, but do hardscaping. We kind of have the same thing as we try not to work more than 12 hours a day. And, during the summer, we're down to like 8. Spring is always a big rush for us. And we're always trying to get as much done as we can per day, because literally in one day we could do, 18 mowing jobs, and then we're turning around and doing 3 irrigation, 4 fertilizations all at the same time. So we're nonstop doing more work that allocates that 12 hours per day. But then during the summer, it's not that much stuff to do. So we're kind of slowing down and working less hours. But now on that, Josh, I know you have certain hours. Do you guys, I don't know about you guys there, but in our area, we're not allowed to be on a lawn till 7:30 in the morning. So do you guys go out to these properties early, as early as you can? And what, you guys have a law that tells you can't go out at a certain time?
So the primary town we operate out of, there's no noise ordinance, but just out of respect on the weekdays, we try not to fire like any equipment up until 8 o'clock. We start at 7:30. Typically, if we're going right to the job site, we'll usually just clean up, keep the noise down, run around. If we have to go grab some poly sand or anything like that, we'll take care of that. 8 o'clock on the dot, we're doing it. I remember when I was mowing, I'd stop mowing at like 7:30, and I would have people lose their mind, like neighbors just go off. Like I had one guy one time at 9 o'clock. His wife was a third shift nurse, and he came out screaming, and I'm holding back, swinging at this dude, because he's like in my face, and I'm like, dude, it's fucking noise. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't care what your wife does. Like, come on,
Right.
dude. But it's hit and miss. Like, you're always gonna piss somebody off. But out of respect, we try to wait till 8 a.m. Different towns or different things. Like if you work in the city of Cambridge, which is closer to the city of Boston, they're very, very adamant about noise ordinance. Like they don't want you even running a motor there during the day. So, we've done jobs down there, but it's tough. So,
Yeah. I mean, we have one area, one town that's in our area, one suburb. They pretty much, you're not allowed to start anything up till 8:30 in the morning, and you got to be out of that area at 6 o'clock. So literally at 6 o'clock, the cops go around looking for any landscaper, tell them literally finish up right now, load it up, and head out.
you must live in a really safe area if the cops are driving around doing that. I mean,
It's literally it's a small little suburb. They have their own high school, but it's more richy, more expensive area, and they pretty much, they put the law down. I mean, that literally, I've gotten stopped many a times. Like Saturdays. If you're behind on a Saturday, you got to get there before 9 o'clock. Sit there and wait till you can start mowing, and you got to be out of there by noon. So it's like there's many times we'll go show up to do a mulch job or something, and it's like, okay, well, I can only do half today. The cops are going to come around and stop me. I can't.
Yeah. I was big on Saturdays too with 9 a.m. starts. Like I wouldn't start at 8 a.m. just because people are sleeping in. Like I would never, just out of respect. And then Sundays, I wouldn't touch Sundays ever. Like I did, like Sundays.
We don't work any Sundays. I mean, that's one thing. I think it's hard to it is busy during this time of year, and I feel like you could work 7 days, but you got to have that day off of rest. And I feel like even Sundays is a day that pretty much everybody likes to sleep in. They like to do whatever. So it's like, don't push yourself to doing a Sunday just to try to get ahead. If you're that far behind because of, I mean, I've had it to where there's rain for 4 days straight in a week, and you're mowing 5 days, and you're like, okay, I'm only getting one day. Do I work Saturday and Sunday? No, you just push it off the next week and just go back through that list. I mean, yeah, you're going to cut, maybe double or triple, but the customer's going to realize that. They're going to know that you have other customers, and you're going to be able to take care of them still at one point. And if they're that hurt for getting the grass cut, then something else is wrong.
It's hard for me, like on the weekends, obviously, because people generally are sleeping a little later during the day, and I'm naturally an early bird. I get up every day on my days off, days on at 5 o'clock in the morning. So what I'll do is like I'll kind of prep stuff. All my equipment's here at my house, and I'll prep stuff in the garage, mess around a little bit, tinker with some of the things that I need to take care of, and then go out a little later during the day. As far as like evenings, we don't, like Josh says, we live in the same state. In our towns, we don't have a particular time frame as far as noise ordinances, but the problem is that people could call at any time, and if it's disturbing them, then that's when it becomes an issue. But also too, we have construction crews out here working on the road, paving roads and stuff like that. They set up 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning for the weekdays, and there are people that work third shift. People are going to get upset. It is what it is. Everybody has a different schedule. But Sundays generally for me are a little later start, just because it's unusual for many people, not usual for many people to be working on a Sunday as it is. But Saturday, I want to get out there early. Sometimes I'm up there at 9:30, 10 o'clock. And even then I still feel like, maybe I'm, kind of bothering people. You got to get your job done. You got to get your job done. People understand, especially your customers. If they want to be able to enjoy the weekend with a freshly mowed lawn and enjoy the yard, they're going to want that done a little earlier than later.
I just found out that there actually is a noise ordinance in my city. I looked yesterday because when I brought the skid steer home, I didn't want to fire it up because I have such a loud backup alarm, and it's 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. But I honestly don't see many people calling, and I can't imagine that the police in my city would bother coming just because there's so much else going on. Like unless like 30 people call, like why would you bother coming out? Like
right.
Yeah.
By the time they got there, it'd probably be 9 o'clock anyway. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so we all have noise ordinances, and I think we all kind of agree with Sundays and stuff. And so do you see, I seen somebody recently, a post from one of the people that I follow that has all battery stuff, battery mower and stuff from Toro. And he was out doing a job at, I think it was 6:30 in the morning. He did his first 2 jobs. Because of it being battery, you can't hear it as much, is what he said. Do you see more landscapers eventually going to battery to do that, to pick up more jobs? Or, I mean, I
No.
know like you, Josh, I mean, there's skid steers now that are starting to come out that are battery powered.
Crazy.
Would you go to something that's
Yeah.
going to be like that, that's going to be less noise or, noisy?
No, I just rather
Get ahead.
start late. I mean, dude, even because you can imagine, even for a landscaper, like this is, I think we talked about battery equipment stuff. It's just not there, especially at the price
Right.
point. Like if you're cutting 80 lawns a week, and you're doing 20 lawns a day, like you're gonna run, like you gotta have a lot of batteries in your setup just to get through the day. I mean, just to do it for a noise ordinance. I mean, what's the difference? Like an hour early start, like you may as
Right.
well just do an hour later in the day, because if you have a noise ordinance, it's probably at like 9-10 o'clock at night that you got to
Right.
cut it off. So I mean, I would just go an hour later or do a half an hour every day or something like that.
Here's the thing with that, right? Now, since it's so new, people are out there and people are learning that, like, hey, I can maybe get an earlier start with the batteries. When it comes to the human nature aspect, if we all converted to electricity and started at 6 o'clock in the morning, people are going to find a reason to complain nonetheless.
Yeah.
Right.
You're still gonna have that weed whip noise from it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, people-
Or your truck, your loud truck that, missing the muffler that you're driving up to the job, I
Yeah,
mean,
you got all battery powered equipment, then you pull up like a
Right.
6 4 diesel, like
right. They're going to know that
dropping
you're
the
there.
tailgate, and then yeah.
Yeah. Or the neighbor's dog that's barking like out of hand because you pulled up and did the lawn next to it, So, I mean, there's going to be some kind of noise and they're going to know that you're there.
I
agree
want to
with
back up to that battery powered skid steer. I don't think that, like, if you're talking like an electric car type skid steer, I'd have to look more into it. I just don't see the power there. If you're doing like light,
I think it's Bobcat that came out with it.
Bobcat's been shit the past few years too, as
Right.
far as like dependability, and like they're not cheap, man. Like you get
No.
Caterpillar, and Caterpillar comes with like you can get a 262D for like $62,000 to start, plus tax.
Right.
It comes with all the bells and whistles. It comes with Bluetooth, AC, heat. It comes with the quick connect, so you're not getting out of the skid steer. You're hitting a button and it's connecting the buckets for you. Bobcat typically upsells all that stuff, and the price point on like a mid-level, like 8,000 pound machine is probably around like 75,000. So, and they've had like a lot of the subs that I use have had Bobcat, and they've gotten away with them and either went to Kubota or Caterpillar just for the price point and what you get. But I mean, I just can't imagine that a skid steer that's going to be on a construction site or a site contractor would be efficient. Now, what is really cool, how like they have the drones in the army,
Right.
and the guys sit in a room and they do all that stuff. Now they have that for skid steers.
What?
When you wake up, you have a room. Like if you walk around and you ever go to there'll be a construction site where it's a site contractor. Site contractors typically they do the groundwork before the building goes up. So they'll excavate, they'll grade, they'll do all that stuff. If you've ever seen a skid steer with that giant box on the top of it, but typically that's like a satellite receptor. So it's just a guy that sits in a room in his house, or he sits at his headquarters and he just drives the skid steer, and it's on VR and stuff, and he can see it on the camera. It's unbelievable.
That's insane.
I was in New Hampshire one day, Salem, New Hampshire, and I'm driving through and I'm like, what the fuck is that box? And I'm like, there's nobody in that thing. I'm like, holy crap. Like, it's so cool. So I came home and I looked it up on YouTube, and I'm like, that's amazing. They do it with front end loaders, excavators. Because think about it. A company could essentially, instead of having to pay room and board and travel costs for 15 operators, they can have their equipment shipped out, or they can rent the equipment. So if you're a Massachusetts-based company and there's a job down in New Mexico or California, you're not having to go over there. You rent that equipment, set it up, and you're just running things from your headquarters or your office. It's unbelievable.
Like, let me ask you this, because I don't have experience with like skid steers and stuff like that. Like, is there something to be said about actually sitting in a chair and having a feel of the environment, a feel of like the being on the ground, like, or is that something that it's 100% pretty much you could get the job done in a room across the country?
If you
That's a
have
good
the like,
point.
yeah, you're gonna have. I mean, you're gonna still have to be a licensed operator because you need, and they're gonna want to see experience because obviously it's the same thing. You're still running that machine. But essentially, like how I was taught how to drive Bobcats and excavators was like I was just thrown into them, and the guy that showed me was like, "Do you ever play video games?" And I'm like, oh, "Kind of." He's like, "It's the same concept. Like, just be careful. Like, act like you're being careful in the game. Obviously, there's more involved in it. You could still hit someone on sight, but I mean, you have a complete view of everything around you. So there's cameras on that receptor too. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you'd want to get into it, you know. But if it push comes to shove, and there's like an operator shortage, I mean, they'd probably just certify you a license you on that 3D virtual, but then
I mean,
getting into an actual skid steer and
yeah,
all of a sudden having the hop,
yeah,
because that's a lot of things guys don't realize. They get in, they fill the bucket up, they you know, they have it at eye view and they go to move, and now they're doing the buck and flow like that,
yeah.
and then your head goes off the window. I mean, yeah, you want to have that experience
Also,
in
too,
that field.
like soft ground, like it rained the night before, you got mud, or
Yeah.
you have more solid surface and stuff, and knowing what your capabilities and limitations are being on site. Like
Well,
I would,
exactly. Knowing how to get out of that, because I mean, you can bury yourself in 3 feet worth of mud if you're not careful.
Right.
it's interesting.
Right. I think it's different. I mean, running a skid steer takes a little bit to it. I think I was the same way with Josh. Pretty much, first time we got one, we rented it, and they were just like, "Go ahead, take off with it. Here's the controls. Here's a button to use. Use your foot because foot pedal. You know, a bucket. You get used to it. I mean, you have to play around with it, and I think that's the one way of learning on it. Um, so going on that, Josh, would you? I know you have in the past, and I know JC has too. Do you guys rent, or would you rather buy like that kind of equipment if you had to get like? I mean, I know you probably would be easier to buy it because you do so many hardscaping, but
So I own two skid steers, a mini excavator, and a loader. Yeah, and that's what I push to, and I use that stuff. But um, if something was to go down in the beginning, I did rent it because I couldn't justify a payment. You know, so an excavator, a skid steer payment could be anywhere from 800 to $1,400 a month. I couldn't justify it because we didn't do enough jobs, so I would rent a skid steer. It was like $1,400 a week. My favorite was the Kubota tractors, the high end backhoes, because I had the backhoe, the excavator attachment, and then I had the bucket in the front where I could dig it up. So it was very versatile as far as what I could do. That was a little on the cheaper side. And then one year I was doing my end of year and I realized I spent 22,000 on the Kubota and skid steer rentals. That year and the year before I'd spent like 13,000. So I was like, you know what? I'm like, if I just threw 15,000 to the used skid steer, boom, right there, like I have it. So I went out and I found a skid steer for like 10 grand, negotiated it down for 9,500. And I had that and I used that for years. I ended up getting my 262D. You know, if Jensen comes over, you can sit in it and you can answer that question yourself. There's a lot of blind spots, but now when it comes to jobs, like if we get jobs that require heavier excavators, we'll rent them. Like I'm not gonna go buy a $150,000 excavator. It doesn't make sense for me. Like I don't do jobs like that. But if I get a call from like a septic system or something, yeah, I could do it with my skids and my excavator, but I'm gonna beat the shit out of those things. So I don't want to beat my stuff up. So I'd rent it and beat their stuff up. You know, you get a bigger like 310, 311 excavator, and you could do some damage with that. You know, and all I would do is build that cost into the estimate. And because that's what I did before. And you got to figure if you're wheelbarrowing stuff and you're running through stuff by hand, you know, it's going to take you twice as long rather than if you rent that. I think it's pretty universal that a skid steer rental's like $400 a day. You know, that's pretty
yeah,
clear across the board.
it's about the same around us.
Plus
I think
delivery
it's
and
like
all that.
352
Yeah.
a day. So I mean, yeah,
And what Jensen just said, plus delivery, honestly, have it delivered
Right.
because we would always haul the stuff. And you got to think you're spending an hour and a half driving to the rental place, doing the paperwork, having them loaded up on the trailer for you, and then driving back to your site. So it becomes a rush game. So that day rental, you're spending 2 to 3 hours just transporting and filling out paperwork. So now you got to run across and try to get this done. Now you only have 5 hours left in the day, you know. So it's then you go into another day, it's $800. So you got to make sure you calculate everything there. I would recommend having it towed over. Like even some of my stuff, man. Like I have a tow company I work with. If we're busy, rather than having to tow everything, we just call the tow company and have them run it. It's like $250 a to one job. We just build it into the price.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that because we're looking at either looking at getting a mini skid or a regular skid steer for our property, because we're getting bulk mulching next year. So literally, we're trying to look into things like that, but we're always looking at the rental because it's pretty much one place we can get a rental pretty much for $1,000 a month on a mini skid, and that's nothing because pretty much to get a brand new Vermeer, it's pretty much around that same price. So we're kind of like almost at an even Steven. So it's kind of like we're
That was like
debating
30 grand new, right? Yeah.
36. Yeah.
36. And then the lower end, not the lower end, the
That
smaller
is the
skid steers
smallest one. That's the very smallest mini skid Vermeer. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh well,
Yeah.
because that's right. Because with Toro, the TX 1000, that was crazy. The price point on that was like 40 something thousand. I'm like, at that point, you may as well
Right.
buy like I don't know the smaller skids, but I remember like the S175 Bobcat. You may as well just get one of those because at least you get a
Right.
sidewalk, enclosed cab, and everything.
Right.
But those mini skids are awesome because I've looked at them too, and I'm like, okay, like those are decent. Recommendation for you, anybody listening? There's a company called Damn Strong Loaders out of Connecticut, and they have a skid steer right now that a mini skid. It's kind of funky looking. It's a Chinese model, but I think for 25 to 30 grand, you get the skid steer, you get forks, you get a bucket, and you get an attachment with it, whether it's an auger, a sweeper, a plow, or something like that. So look it up at like damnstrongloaders.com because I'm actually looking. Their loaders are the equivalent of an SDLG, which SDLGs, they're not bad machines. They're Chinese machines. They're not a Caterpillar, but they're also a fraction of the price. So a big, the equivalent of a 928 loader from Caterpillar is probably like $250,000 brand new, or right around brand new.
Right.
These things are $100K. You can
Right.
get a mini for you, honestly, for you on the mulch end. If you start doing like bulk delivery, they have a loader which is equivalent to the 908 Caterpillar. It's $60,000 for the buckets and the fork. So that's not bad. And then I figure, from Connecticut to Ohio, what's that, 6-7 hours?
Right. Yeah.
So
It's a
delivery
little
on that.
longer the drive.
Well, I don't know. I've never driven that way. I take planes, Scott. I think what's your delivery on that? $1,000, couple $1,000. So you're into it for 62,000 plus your tax. That's not bad on a mini loader. And then if you look at the depreciation you're going to get for it, and you look at the efficiency it's going to create for you, that's huge. Especially if you put plates on it and you drive it from commercial job to commercial jobs. If you got like 100-yard mulch job, you're moving a couple of yards at a time with that thing.
Right.
So, and you know what? You throw a pusher on it in the winter, boom, making you money.
Let me ask you this question for both of you. Investing in a big piece of equipment like that, obviously, number one, you determine whether or not you need to justify the purchase of it and what you're utilizing it for. But would you ever put yourselves in a position in which you would then rent out that skid steer to make more money because you can't, trust in other companies to utilize your equipment?
No, I'm kind of the same way. Something that big. I mean, we rent our dump trailer out to a buddy of mine. Only because he pretty much, if we need a piece of equipment, he'll drop one of his equipment off to us or something. It's kind of like a quick change of stuff, but renting out to some, like buying a brand new one and then renting it out when we're not using it, I can't see that to justify any cost because it's more of like, you don't know, you can beat the crap out of something and you don't know how that other person's going to beat the crap out of it. They could beat it even worse than what you are, and you're going to get it back and be like, okay, really, this is destroyed, or this is, it kind of comes down to that. It's kind of like we've learned to just recently of buying used equipment. It's kind of hard to go justify buying a piece of used equipment from somebody that you don't know how they treat it, and that's one of the hard things about it when you buy a piece of used equipment is they could not change the oil, they could not change the air filter, and here you're getting it, and it might look like a new filter, but they probably just blew it out, and said, oh yeah, I just cleaned it out, so it's kind of one of those things. It's hard to justify that, and I don't see, even if I bought one, if I would let anybody use it besides me and the guys that work for me. So
I kind of knew the answer to that question already, but just wanted to pick your brain on it.
Just think about it, right? When you go to a rental place, Home Depot or like your local rental place, a lot of the people that are renting that shit, all you need to do is go online and take, like in Massachusetts, you need a two-way 1C hydraulics license to use a skid steer or an excavator, right? You need the 1C for the excavator, and then with a forks, the 2A for a little bobcat. So you can go online and take a 14-day licensure course, which you're covered for 14 days. Those people beat the shit out of those things. Like, these are people that aren't used to using those, and they'll lift capacity. They don't know the lift capacity of things. They're banging things around. Like, I've seen how some of the shit we rented, we're just like, let it fly, like send it, So like, think about renting your equipment to someone like that. They may not think they're beating the crap out of it because it's a piece of construction equipment, but like, I try to finesse my equipment, and what Scott's saying is right. Like, you never know what you're getting with a piece of used equipment. It doesn't take much to power wash a machine, change the filters right away. Like, what I do is, like, I think I'm fairly intelligent when it comes to looking at equipment and trucks, but I still bring my mobile mechanic, not hired under me, he doesn't work for me, but he's my mobile mechanic. And I pay him the travel time to go to the job and the hour for the inspection, because he does this shit every day. He knows how to tell if someone was dicking around with it. So I don't do that every day. So it's like, he'll look at it. But I mean, I still look at used equipment as if it's priced right and what it has on it. But think about it. It's like, if you're renting that much, you could get a skid steer payment for $10,000 to $18,000 a year. That's pennies on what you should be making. And if you're not making quadruple that, like, come on, like, Caterpillar's interest rate to enter a piece of equipment is like 7.2. Doesn't matter with 14%. And I know you have the guys that are like, I want to, own my equipment. I don't want to have notes, but it's like, dude, it's the same shit. It's like, you're putting out that cash capital that you could have in your pocket instead of having an $800 a month rental. Well, I don't want to have that payment. Well, if you're pricing your jobs right, that doesn't matter. You should be making quadruple that on a piece of equipment. You take, like, if it costs me $18,000 a year for my piece of equipment, I'm dividing that up into my working time, and I'm making sure that's what I'm getting. If it's just a sole piece of equipment that's $100,000 loader, you better believe that's no account is double or triple that. If you're putting a piece of equipment there.
So here's one for you, JC. I mean, you do some aerations, correct?
I have. It's not
Okay.
something I
So
usually.
would you rent a piece of aerator, or would you, let's say you had enough aeration jobs that could pretty much pay for a cost of a brand new one? Would you rent it or would you buy it? Because I know, like, sometimes it always comes down to space. Like, do you have enough space for that piece of equipment? Do you have room to store that, when you're not using it? So would you rent or buy on that?
To answer that question real quickly, I'd buy. I don't have enough jobs in which I think I could get to that point. I could potentially do that if I get more clients, or if I kind of work during the week. I have had an instance in which I ended up renting an aerator, and it was for myself. Now, a quick flip example of that would be is that I actually convinced 3 customers of mine to get aeration services. So I ended up renting the aerator for myself, did my own property, did those 3 properties, and I got paid back what I put into the cost for the rental plus a lot more. So it was it was a win situation, and I could see myself doing that more often. And then at a point in which if I at some way down the road decide that I have more customers, or I'm working more, I would absolutely purchase the aerator for those instances. But again, you're not even, like Josh says, you're not the one paying for it. If you initially make that initial investment, and then you do enough jobs, you're getting that money back, and then that, even after that payment, your aerator is still making you money at the end of the day. So yeah, I would absolutely buy one.
Can I touch on this?
Yeah.
So I used to make a ton of money off aerations. That was like my bread and butter, to be honest with you. So I haven't been a hardscaper my entire time. Like, I did lawn care and landscape for like a very long time in mowing. But when it came to aerations, man, holy crap. Like, I think one year in 2 weeks, I made 10 grand off aerations. Now, that was huge money for me at the time. You know what I mean? It was like, holy crap, because I rented the friggin' thing from Home Depot. It was just one of those like what 21-inch ones. And I reached out to a bunch of landscapers. I reached out to my entire customer base and I just went ham on it, man. But to answer that question, right? If you thought of if you think of the Toro stand-on aerator, the
Right.
last time I checked, and this was a few years ago, because I was so tempted to buy something because I wanted to speed up the process. Because at the end of the day of doing this shit, I remember I did 30 in one day, and dude, I couldn't even work the next day. I was so beat. So I was like, I'll
Right.
never do that many again by myself. But I would rent two of them, and me and a coworker, or me and one of my employees would go back and forth, just tag teaming it. But that Toro stand on a few years ago was 10 grand. So I would imagine it'd be about 12 grand right now.
Right.
No, just paying that off for 1 year is $1,000 a month or a little bit more. That's not bad. Now, if you break that up into 3 years, you're paying a few $100s a month for that. You're going to tell me that, look at True Green. Scott, you work for them. How many aerations do they do? Just one technician?
They have usually a crew that goes out. The one in our area has a crew, 2 people that go out daily for pretty much the whole summer. And they're doing probably about 10, 15 jobs a day.
So there you go, right there. So in my neighborhood, right, you could get what, like $150, 200. So right there, that's $2,200 a day, a
Yep.
day. So if you start advertising from August to October from that, and you'll get your early birds that'll do it in August. I mean, Jesus Christ, like True Green over here starts it in like July. They start overseas.
We start them over here in March. We start doing
Because
aerations in
people do them
March
in the
and go
spring,
all the
but
way
it's
pretty much till October. So literally, as long as that ground is not hard, and it's unfrozen, you can go ahead and do it, and and then you can go pretty much till the last frost. So literally, that's a big amount of time that you can do aerations.
dude, I went on Vistaprint and I made a flyer, and basically I put a picture of one of my customers' house with a lush lawn, and I took that generic, everybody's seen it, that it's like it looks like the core aerations, and it shows like the depth and like the benefits and like how the nutrients and the water gets into the soil and helps grow the roots and blah blah blah. Dude, like I don't know what it was, but the aeration, people will go do it. Like they don't blink an eye. Fertilizer, they'll go, oh, I don't know. But
Right.
aeration, just because it's pushed so much, like I would not be scared. Like even if I didn't have that many customers, like to have that piece of equipment for like $500-200 a month, depending on what you put down for it, dude, that's worth it. And then what I would do is I would probably buy the used one that the walk behind, for like $1,000, put some money into it just for the small lawns. But dude, I mean, you could legitimately build a business around just lawn aeration. It's crazy how much money there is in that.
Yeah, just that alone, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, at the end of the day, aeration works. Like it shows results, and people want to see those quick results. And it's like Josh says, you're in and out, you're real quick. I would absolutely go more towards the stand on as opposed to the push behind, man, because those things are brutal. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you do have to be careful with the stand on, because you hit one rock or one piece of ledge and you are going flying on the thing. But back to what Scott said about renting equipment. So let's say that you buy this $10,000-12,000 piece of equipment and you start freaking out where you don't have the jobs for it now. Those rentals in my neighborhood go for $300 a day. So now if you do decide that, you know what, I'm not making the money, that's $300 a day. You rent that out 4 times a month. You just covered your payments for a few months. So
Right.
there's different avenues you can take with this. Like I think in lawn care, to me, I think for my business, I know that it was one of the most lucrative services I had. The detaching was great, but there was a cleanup aspect of that. Where like you would detach it and then you're raking everything up or you're blowing it. Aeration, man, if you're getting off that truck with that aerator, you're blowing through that thing and you're taking a blower to maybe where some of those cores came out when you were loading up your trailer. So, I think that a lot of these lawn care guys could clean house on them, and don't be afraid to buy them.
Right. Right.
New.
Brand new, not used. Or rental. I feel like a rental place is sometimes it depends on the people that own it. I mean, I rent from 2 places. One is cheaper, but he takes care of the commercial people that come in there more than he does residential. And it's like, you can tell, and some of the equipment, it's like, I wouldn't rent it myself. It's the way you see it come in and you're like, okay, I'm definitely not renting that one. And it's like you say, hey, this is going on. We recently rented one and the belt broke, and I was prepared to pay for the belt. I'm not, you're mowing it breaks. Okay, so I'm prepared to pay for the belt. I told him, I said, well, I need a belt. I'll be up there first thing in the morning when you guys open up. It was literally 5 minutes before they closed, and I said, okay, I'll be there up there first thing in the morning. Showed up, and he's like, okay, hey, what's going on? Hey, getting that belt. And he's like, okay, yeah, hang on 1 second. And he grabs the belt, and he's like, here you go. I said, dude, don't you need a payment for it or what? Like, it's like a $60-$70 belt, right? And he's like, yeah, but he's like, I take care of you guys. You rent from us nonstop. Like, it's not like you're just here once, to rent a mower for 1 day and be done. He's like, you got a week rental on it. He goes, I know you need to make money on it. So I know you probably lost some money on it yesterday. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, no problem. It's you can see how it is, and he's told me before of how people have brought back a Bobcat that, the door's broke and they're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. And you're like, it wasn't that way when you left with it. Like, I know you didn't take it out that way. So yeah.
Just an FYI, I've never had an aerator that I didn't have an issue with that I rented. Every single time that I've rented it, I've had so that's where we started too, renting 2 at a time. We were making great money that we would just rent 2. So when one broke down, the other guy would just shoot up to the rental place, bring it back and swap it out while we still have one going and rotating. So we start, like, even if I was doing it today, which I've considered getting into just seasonal aerating just because it's so lucrative and it's only labor plus the payment. I would still rent 2 if I was doing it by myself, just every single time I've had an issue.
Yeah, I've rented a few things in my lifetime, and like Josh, yeah, man, I've always had horror stuff. Like I rented a tiller a few years back, and it started up when the guy gave it to me, and then when I got home, I think the ride, all the wires are frayed. And I'm like, I'm not going back to this fucking. Oh, sorry, I'm not going back to this store.
JC just swear.
Yeah,
Holy
that's the first time I've ever heard him swear.
Oh my god, yeah, and it sounded natural. Holy
I'm not going
crap!
Back so
I was looking at my phone and I shot. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, that just threw me off.
I just shocked the world. You got to edit that out.
No, let's
edit it out. That's going on a snippet, dude. Holy crap!
That's gonna be the thumbnail with the
yeah.
Well, I got it home and the wires are frayed, and I'm like, I'm not going back to the store, and I just I put the wires back I fixed the wires together, and it was all covered up with the cowl. I just returned it. I'm like, hey, listen, man, the freaking wires are all frayed, and he ended up giving me like my money back for it. He didn't charge me, but yeah, you're like you said, you have homeowners who are unexperienced that don't know how to use it. They end up breaking it, and then you have the guys that know how to use it that just beat the crap out of it. So you can't win. You can't really win.
No, you can't. Rentals a fun thing.
I've seen guys use Bobcats with forks to take big boulders out of a ground that should be like a bigger excavator doing that thing. Right. So just to give you kind of an example. Well, Scott was one of them. Look how he's laughing.
I actually did that. I when I renoed my lawn last year, I had the skid steer. There was this boulder in the middle of my lawn that was just, it's so annoying. Like I just wanted it out, and I was able to get it out. It was pretty big too. I don't know if it was obviously able to handle it, but I don't know if it met the limitations or the maximum capacity.
Yeah, I've done some weird stuff with it, even though I know how to use them. I've done some stuff I shouldn't have with the rental equipment. So I mean, it's you hope that you don't destroy it before you take it back, but then you're like, oh well, I've kind of come to the point where it's like, okay, I might need this another time, or I might need to rent something else from them. So maybe I shouldn't go do what I should be not doing with it and just do normal stuff with it, So it's like,
here's another note with to Josh's point about getting the equipment delivered. So another example with that skid steer that I rented it for 2 days, and I had them deliver it. And it was actually a friend of mine that owned it. But on the second day, he's like, hey man, I'm not going to be able to come out and pick it up. He's like, I'll let you know when I'm able to come to your house and grab it. So I had it for like an extra 4 days, and I had some fun with it.
Oh yeah. That's I think, renting in it and having it delivered is the best thing, especially bigger equipment, because it's not putting, the wear and tear on your piece of your truck that's hauling it around, and you don't have to worry about it, and like you said, I've had the same thing where I'm renting something and said, okay, I just need it for the weekend at my place. And I'll call them up Monday and say, okay, it's ready to pick up. And okay, well, we'll be there at the end of the day. They got enough moving around of equipment that they're sometimes, hey, cheers for that extra day, because we can't get it. So if you need extra work with it, you got it. Otherwise, you're on a time crunch and you're like, okay, I got to get this back to the store exactly at this time, or I'm going to get charged that extra hour or whatever, for being there. So
It could be good or bad too, right? Because like if Josh is renting a piece of equipment at a customer's house and the job's done, the equipment's still there, and they're not able to pick it up, maybe the customer wants that out of their property too. I don't know. How do you deal with that, Josh?
Um, so we always, every once in a while we have them delivered, but for the most part, we would take the trailer. So like the main place that we rented from, we would get the trailer included in the rental. So we would haul it. In that case, we just have to tell them like when we would have it delivered, and if there was a delay, we just tell them, we put it on the street with cones, and you kind of just have to deal with it. That's how it is. I mean, even now, like we have my excavator was stuck just because we couldn't get over there to pick it up. My excavator was stuck on the job for 3 days after we were done. So we put it to the side. The customer didn't mind. It was on a grassy patch, and he just asked if we could move it because the lawnmower company was coming, and he didn't want that to be like overgrown or anything. So just communication, let the customer know, hey, we got to wait for it to be picked up. We'll do our best. And then a lot of it too is putting pressure on the company to go pick it up. Or you drive that shit and you go do another job with it. If they're not going to get it, hey, go find a job.
no, okay, you were talking about putting plates on it. Now, would you move that, just drive it down the road without a trailer?
The skid steer.
Good.
I do that now. I got to put gas on my skid steer, and I'm driving like 3 blocks away to get gas. I don't care. And I don't have a plate on that thing. Who's gonna stop you? I have never been stopped on a piece of equipment without.
I don't know. I've never seen nobody get pulled over.
Cops usually cops don't give a shit as long as you're not like driving like an idiot. A cop's not gonna pull you over for that because they think that you're working for the city or something. They don't give a shit.
Right? They're gonna think you're a city worker.
Yeah, I mean, if you're driving like a moron and you're bouncing and swinging, I'd pull you over too. But yeah, no, I don't care. I mean, and like a track machine, hell no, but a wheel machine, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
My excavator, you go like 100 feet. It's because I have the road tracks on it.
Right.
And holy crap, dude! Like you'd vibrate your teeth out of your head going.
You're bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, it's rough. It's a rough ride.
Oh, okay. Well, guys, this was a great episode. I hope you all learned something about renting and buying. And that Josh just drives a skid steer all over the city. So be careful.
Swearing.
And yeah, JC swore, and he took a rock out of his yard with something that he shouldn't have. So if you go ahead and rent a piece of equipment where he rented from, just make sure that you check it out beforehand. So but keep listening to us, guys. Watch us on YouTube at Landscapes by Acme, and listen to us Landscaping to the Point on all your podcast forums. And like I said, like us, comment, leave us messages, send us messages. We'll go ahead and answer them. Josh is waiting for a great question to be asked. I mean, he's always wanting to know,
challenge me, talk smack.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. He likes to cuss. So if you really want to hear,
if you haven't noticed, it's going to be
mean,
shocking when I have an episode where I don't cuss.
Yeah.
You never know. It could be next episode. So keep listening, guys. Thank you guys for being on. And thanks, Josh. Thanks, JC. It was
shout out to all the veterans. Happy Memorial Day. You earned it.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for all your service if you're a vet or somebody in a vet family. So thank you, guys.